Hello, and you are listening to Spirit Talk Show. I'm Doyle, the host. We are doing AI generated stories and having interesting people come in and listen to us and talk with us. If you guys would like to get involved, you can go to spirittalkshow.com. You can see all our shows there on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and anywhere you see podcasts or listen to podcasts. We are reading AI generated stories, and it's always fun to do that with interesting people. So I like to bring my friends into the studio, and sometimes people I've just met. And tonight I have Norman Lorenz in the studio with me, a professor at Sac College with 42 years of educational experience. So Norm is going to read stories with her. Hey, Norman.
How's it going?
So how long have you been teaching at Sac State?
I've been at Sac
Oh,
City, Sac
City.
City College for 18 years.
18 years?
26 in the district and 45 across my educational journey.
So most teachers don't work, or most educators don't work 45 years. When are you going to retire?
I see probably 1 to 2 years out. And, I'll still be working in education, just more from a consultant standpoint. I'm going to work in a doctoral program with Sarasota University, which is a Montessori leadership institution.
Yeah, I was looking at your profile, and it says you have 42 years of education, and much of it is rooted in Montessori principles. So what drew you to Montessori? How did that shape your approach to teaching?
I grew up on a farm in Elk Grove and decided I wanted to be a fourth grade teacher, like my fourth grade teacher. And I went to Sac State. I got into Davis and Sac State, and my parents are like, Davis is too far. You have to cross the causeway. I'm like,
oh, wow.
So I moved closer to Sac State, and I needed a job because my father actually did not support me to go to university. He wanted me to take over the farm.
Wow.
No farm for me, buddy.
You didn't want to be a farmer.
No farming. No. And so, farming meant to pick up the vegetables at the Rayleighs. And so anyway, I found a job in a Montessori school, Village Montessori in Carmichael, California, and it changed my life.
And any siblings who took over the farm?
No. My father actually kind of ended the farm business. He was actually, he worked in HVAC.
Okay, so that sounded like, when you said that sounded like there was some sadness in that. Was that something?
Yeah, a little bit of sadness. Yeah, he wasn't really an effective business person, and the farm was something that he loved, but it truly was a hobby, and the land actually became part of the Valley High community in north side of Elk Grove. So I went to Sac State and Montessori from there on, and now I'm working in community college.
So you have been in this community your whole life?
All my life.
The whole life?
All 63 years.
You haven't lived anywhere else?
No, well, I did my teaching credentials in San Diego, so I lived there for a couple of summers, but overall I did an exchange program, so I lived in Lübeck, Germany for 2 different summers, but no, here's where my roots are.
And by the way, you said your age there, and you need to look him up online. He does not look 63. I hope.
Thank you.
I look half as good and half as healthy. So you also are instrumental. Would you say instrumental in a Elk Grove charter school? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my husband Edward Condon and I started a group of Montessori private schools, and out of those private schools evolved the California Montessori Project, which I co-founded with 3 other colleagues of mine in the education world, and we started the CMP in 4 different school districts across the Sacramento region in 2001. And so 23 years later, it's functioning with 6 schools and 4 districts, 2 counties, and serves about 2,800 TK through 8th grade students. And that evolved to helping found with a set of families another school in the Sonoma County area, River Montessori, was with them on the board for 10 years. And then most recently in 2017, wrote a charter for a Montessori-inspired high school with a homeschool component. And that started the Cottonwood School. We started in 2019, and we're now with about 3,500 students between homeschool and in-person learning at the high school level. So
That's great. So a huge impact on the children in the California. I mean, this Sacramento area is the educational experience for a huge amount of
yeah,
kids were affected
yeah,
by you
I
personally.
feel very fortunate to have had those opportunities to the current day, and working at the community college offers me ability to infuse Montessori principles with educator related courses, and then additionally I work with a Montessori teacher education program where we train teachers to certify.
Wow. So I remember I tried to go into Montessori teaching, and they wanted to send you training. And by the way, I didn't know you were the founder of the California Montessori Project. You know,
Yes.
we tried to get our son in third grade, and it was such a wait list. It was very popular.
You know, it's on who you know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I should have known you then. Wow, because we were trying to get him into the one in, I think in Rancho Cordova. Is that where it is?
They're actually in San Juan, Elk Grove, Sac City, Unified, and Buckeye up in El Dorado County. So it might have been Carmichael area.
I think it was the Carmack. We really wanted to try to get him in. We went for an interview and a tour and stuff. Yeah. So, okay, wow, that's a lot. I didn't know. I've known you for a while. Of course, we are like both members of the Sacramento Gay Men's Chorus.
Yes.
And that's what I really like about this is when people come on, you get this intimate knowledge about them. That you know, I've seen you now for 2 years walking around and said hi and this stuff. I wish I'd known all along because it's really impressive.
I was also very fortunate to be one of the founding singers of the Sacramento Men's Chorus that eventually became the Sacramento Gay Men's Chorus.
Wow.
In 1984, I was 23.
So this is year 40.
Year 40.
Wow.
I cumulatively have only sung 28 years of those 40 because of children and degrees and workload, but I've seen it for all of the 40 years. I was with the very first director, Dr. David Noonan, who founded it along with other chorus members, and Frankie and David and I are, I think, the only 3 still active members of the chorus.
Can you talk about why it was and what the culture was like then and why it was created?
The men's chorus was created because of a need for an outlet to offer community support to those that were in the LGBT world. And, you know, at the beginning, it was mostly 99.9% gay men.
Yeah.
And over time, the evolution of its cultural competencies have built this amazing organization that is very community spirited and grounded in LGBTQIA plus framework. Wow. And that, I think, in its initial founding was to sing, and it evolved to a support community for those that felt unsafe out in the real world, that you could find respite there. It became a solace place for those during the AIDS crisis. I think I've sung at more memorials than most people, having been a part of the chorus, and what it truly has brought to the Sacramento community through the riches of working with the arts is a beautiful thing.
So you've lost members you could name today to AIDS.
Absolutely.
Like probably a few, more than both your hands, or is it like only a few?
Yeah, both, more than both hands.
More than both hands. Wow.
Yeah.
And these are people you knew intimately.
Intimately.
Because I know the chorus and the relationship, and it's not just a singing group of guys. It's a family.
It is.
We feel so close. I guess.
It is a family.
So,
and there are others, in our community that are in and around to this day, obviously much older, wiser, I should say. They're mentors. They're people in the community that were there during those founding years, for which I'm very fortunate to be a part of those communities as well, even though they don't sing. we all get together every once in a while and talk about memories.
So can I ask you about, because your partner Ed was here a little while ago before we did this recording. Hi Ed, you left the room a few minutes ago. We thought you were going to stay, but it's okay. You can hear it now. Um, so were you guys like, were you guys out in '84 and like being a teacher in education in the Sacramento area? I mean, what was the concern about being too like open and out?
We were, I would say, semi out, right? When you were among the chorus members or other organizations like CAPAC that was founded, there was Pillars, which was a business community. You could be out there. At the time that I began my career in education, you could still be fired in California for being an educator. And, certainly the laws caught up with our society, and there are incredible protections because otherwise I wouldn't have had 45 years in education thus far. Yeah. I think that for us, it was living transparently, and with each of those evolutionary changes, in 1994, we were the first same-sex couple to adopt a child in the state of California. And that was just unheard of, right? You could either adopt singly and then others would, partners would adopt post that adoption. But we set a precedent with a family court judge to adopt and both be on the birth certificate. And we did it twice. There was a little bit of political hassle between former Governor Wilson and former Governor Gray Davis. But through all of that, November 20th is National Adoption Day. And that was the day that we adopted our second child, for which we fortunately had the same judge. And he said, "You've been here before. We already set precedents. Granted. Adoption granted." And so we're both on the certificate as the co-parents.
And both your children are healthy and out in the world.
They are, yes. Our son is 27, working for Southwest, married to a teacher also. And she works in a Spanish immersion charter school here in Sacramento. Our daughter is working in San Francisco Unified as a third grade teacher, and her partner is in tech sales. And they are doing great things, and we're really fortunate to have them in our lives.
So I think that although being in the LGBT community is also, there's a lot more protections now. I'm a teacher 22 years, but this is my first job the last 4 years that I'm in right now, that it felt safe to be truly out like at school and talk about it openly with, like, I don't discuss it with the students, but like with the teachers, they all know. But this is the first school where it truly felt safe. So there's still a ways to go.
In my career of entrepreneurship and then employment, my first official employment other than my entrepreneurship was the Department of Education. And although I didn't talk about it, people knew. But when I came to Sac City, Dr. Catherine Jeffries, former president of City College, knew because I shared with her in my interview that I needed to bring my child to work to the interview because I had to leave to go out of town for my former job, and that my husband would be picking him up. And she looked at me with this just glow in her eye, and that was the moment I realized, wow, things have changed. And so I walked into Sac City as a gay man, as someone who has a husband with 2 children. In that point in time, they were teenagers, and no one batted an eye. And as I formulated my comfort level in my classrooms, I would have never talked about our family structure. I was very guarded about it. Given the concern of potential student indifference.
You have to be,
And today, again, I can mention my husband, I can mention my children. They're, grown adult behaviors, and students and adult learners alike are just extremely supportive.
Well, I think we're almost there. I still feel like there's this feeling in the gay community that you have to still come out, and I'm like, I never came out because I don't feel the need to make an announcement
Right.
about who I am. But that's a division. That's divisive, right? For
Yeah.
me to have to say, like, announce who I am, right?
Yeah.
Like to the world. So
Yeah.
wow, that's very. You've done a lot, Norm.
Thank you.
You've done a lot of stuff, and you've done. I can't imagine the countless kids, the countless people, community people who are
Yeah.
living. I mean, it's almost. I'm getting choked up at the people. How many children and people in this community around the world are living like better lives because you did what you did, right?
I did at one point kind of vaguely count classrooms with students, and then classrooms turned into schools, and how many schools, along with my consultation with the Department of Education, more than 100 schools, more than 200 classrooms, and somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25,000 learners, whether they were infants or adults. And that
Wow.
feels pretty daunting, actually. But,
You should have run for office. You should have run for, you could probably, wow. I mean, I feel like I want to talk about that more because it's so profound. There's people who, I think teachers aren't honored enough in our community. I know I'm a teacher, but when you see a police discount and a military discount places, and it's like, people like, well, why would there be a teacher discount? Because, I think they should be treated like, vets who've gone, in service, right? I don't know why we don't think of them that way.
well, and I think it's admirable for us to speak about education as an important factor, but as a country, we struggle with the ability to dedicate ourselves to young children. And yet there are thousands of educators that put their heart and soul into the education,
Money.
and yet, yeah, we'd never have enough money. And then we wonder where we go awry in relationship to student violence and things of that nature. If we did a better job in our consistency of delivery across a holistic educational experience from as early as infancy through adult education, we might not have war, right? We would certainly have a less percentage of dictators and authoritarians in the world if we were more diplomatic, democratized, and valued participatory governance in children's holistic learning.
I think it's part of it's the dichotomy of the way people think, the macro and like the macro thinking and because the microscopic thinking. Because if you speak to an individual about kids and helping kids, they're mostly going to say, "Yes, I agree with you." But then when they're talking about macro community and they're voting, they vote it down.
I know.
They vote it down when you just said that you want to help kids.
It's the investment
And so
to the next generation.
I think sometimes I love unions. I'm part of the union. Sometimes I think the union focuses more on the teachers than the kids, and that's a concern too.
There's certainly a need for moderation and balance between the two.
I know that I've been told as a new teacher, I'm not a new teacher anymore, but when I started, I was told to stop doing things that worked in my class only because the old teachers were getting flack because they weren't doing it and was making them look bad. So the union solution was for me to stop doing the thing that's working really well
Yeah.
because I don't want the old teachers to look bad.
One of my roles is to coordinate professional development for our campus at Sac City College, and it's a point of contention in relationship to putting out innovative strategies that offer success to student persistence and graduation and transfer.
But I think what's happened, like you love the Montessori type technique, and it seems like as teachers, we talk about how we need to do this innovative stuff and this interesting stuff and the stuff that keeps people engaged. And then all the PDs we go to is somebody talking at me
Right.
for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And
It
it's
has
like,
to be action oriented.
yes, like you just spoke to me about 2 hours about the importance of interaction and projects and stuff. And like the irony of like how, why are you speaking at me? We should be doing something. And so I like to put the practice in my class. I want to do the action. I don't want to
Very
do
much so.
I talk very rarely in my class, to be honest. So it's all project stuff.
Hmm.
So, wow, I could talk to you the whole time. We've spoken for most of the. I think we should. Do you want to read a story? Do you
Let's
want
read a
to
story.
let's have you read a story. I like to have my guest read first, right? So I have a story I want you to do. Now I think we misunderstood this assignment, but I let you read the prompt later on. But here's your story, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll like this as we go.
All right.
Okay, like a teleprompter.
All right.
And when you're ready.
Well, in a small, quiet village at the edge of a vast desert lived a man named Kai. He was born into a life where survival was a daily struggle. The heat of the sun scorched the earth, making it nearly impossible to grow crops or find fresh water. His days were spent scavenging for food and searching for drinkable water. Every night, as he lay beneath the stars on the cool desert sand, his stomach growling, Kai dreamed of a more than just surviving. But for now, survival was his only goal. One day, after many years of toil, the village discovered a hidden well beneath the sand. It was deep and abundant, ensuring that the people no longer had to wander the desert in search of water. With water now secured, Kai found that the hunger pangs were less frequent. He could grow food, trade with other villages, and finally rest with a full stomach. It was the first time in his life he felt a sense of relief. He no longer worried about whether he would make it through another day. As time passed, the village built stronger homes with sturdy walls to shield against the desert winds and intruders. For the first time, Kai felt safe. No longer would he fear the roaming bandits or the sandstorms that once threatened to destroy everything he worked for. With food in his belly and a roof over his head, Kai's thoughts began to wander beyond mere survival. He began to wonder, what else is there? It wasn't long before Kai noticed his neighbors and felt villages more. He began to form friendships, sharing meals, laughter, and stories beneath the stars. The bonds of community wrapped themselves around like a warm blanket. He felt a deep sense of belonging, something he had never known in his years of isolation and survival. In the evenings, he no longer lay down alone. He sat with friends, basking in the warmth of the shared company. But even as his relationships grew, Kai felt something was still missing. The sense of community was important, but he found himself yearning for something within. He realized that despite the safety and friendships he hadn't truly looked at himself. Who was he beyond the role he played in his village? Kai began to take on tasks that made him feel proud. He became a mentor to younger villagers, teaching them how to cultivate the land, how to build homes, and how to protect themselves from the dangers of the desert. His confidence grew with every lesson he shared, and with each day his sense of self-worth blossomed. The village began to look up to him, and for the first time in his life, Kai felt valued, not just for what he could do, but for who he was. But still, something deeper stirred within him. One evening, while sitting atop a dune, staring out at the horizon, Kai realized what he had been seeking all along. He had everything he once thought he needed: food, water, safety, friendship, and respect. But now he craved something more profound: to understand his place in the world, to live a life of meaning and purpose, to pursue what truly made him feel alive. And so Kai began to explore his passions. He took up art, drawing in the sand, creating sculptures from stone, and learning the ancient songs of his ancestors. Through his creativity, he felt connected to something greater than himself, as if he was finally tapping into the core of who he was meant to be. He no longer worried about survival or safety or even the opinions of others. His life became a canvas, and every day was an opportunity to paint it with his own colors. Kai had reached the summit of his journey, the place where he could fully express himself and pursue the deepest desires of his soul. He had climbed Maslow's pyramid step by step, from the most basic needs to the highest form of fulfillment, self-actualization. As Kai gazed out at the endless expanse of desert before him, he smiled. The journey had been long and difficult, even arduous at times, but it had led him to a place of peace, creativity, and a deep understanding of who he truly was. And in that moment, he realized the climb was not just about reaching the top, but about appreciating every step along the journey.
That was actually very sweet. You're obviously a dad and a teacher, because the way you read this story, I got a little bit like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I was listening to
You
a
could
bedtime
see the
story.
sand dunes.
Yeah. So what did you think of that story?
Well, there's some parallels, and as you think about the connections to Maslow's pyramid, the climb is for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Ed and I came together as young people at Sac State, and we met and we dated, and I knew right away that there was a possibility of long-term experience, not knowing what that time meant,
Yeah.
for which now has been up to 43 years for
Wow.
us.
Wow.
And so the self-actualization is all of the things that we just talked about, the building of schools, the education methodologies of Montessori, all the colleagues, and ultimately raising children.
Well, I really want to talk about it. We are running out of time in the first half, but I'd like to talk about that when we get back, okay?
Wonderful.
If you guys would like to get involved, go to spirittalkshow.com. Come back after the break. We'll read more stories.